Okay, let's jump right into this explainer, because right off the bat, we need to shatter a massive misconception. Today, it's pretty common to see Ayurveda dismissed as just basic herbal medicine, a loose collection of wellness trends, soothing teas, or maybe some spiritual woo-woo. But honestly, that completely ignores history. Over 3,000 years ago, Ayurveda was absolutely not a spa day. It was a deeply sophisticated, incredibly comprehensive medical framework. So let's look at the hard evidence and strip away the fluff.
Section 1. The Herbal Medicine Myth. There is a huge gap between the modern, simplified view of Ayurveda and the highly engineered system it actually was in antiquity. The myth we're all so familiar with is, well, basically a cup of herbal tea. But the reality? We're talking about a rigorous, fully fleshed out medical science. This system featured complex biological physiology, precise clinical diagnosis, a highly classified pharmacology, and, this is the crazy part, advanced surgery. And here is the absolutely crucial point to remember. This fully functioning medical system was developed, documented, and actively operating over 3 millennia ago. 3,000 years. When you really stop and realize that timeline, the sheer complexity of what we're about to explore becomes absolutely staggering. I mean, they were systematically mapping out human health thousands of years before modern medicine even took shape.
Section 2. Anatomy of the biological system.
So, to build any kind of medical system, you first need a working model of human biology, right? Ayurveda built theirs using very precise scientific frameworks. Take the tree dosha, for example. Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Rather than being some sort of mystical energies, these were structured functional models used to categorize actual biological processes. Then there's Saptadhatu, which structurally mapped out the 7 distinct bodily tissues. And driving the whole shebang was Agni, the metabolic and digestive fire. They essentially mapped the human body as this incredibly complex, interconnected, thermodynamic engine.
Now this part is fascinating. This system meticulously tracked what they called Shat Kriya Kala, which is the exact progression of a disease mapped out into 6 distinct stages. It starts quietly with accumulation and aggravation, then it escalates to dissemination and localization, and finally results in outward manifestation and systemic disruption. They completely understood that illness isn't just a sudden, random event, it's a chain reaction. By tracking how a disease travels, practitioners could intercept and treat it at specific milestones way before it caused permanent damage.
Section 3. Clinical diagnosis and personalization.
Obviously, ancient practitioners couldn't just guess what was wrong with someone. They relied on highly precise observation to gather physical patient data. They utilized a comprehensive 8-fold examination, analyzing deep internal metrics like the patient's pulse and their tongue, but they also paired this up with a rapid 3-fold assessment that relied heavily on keen visual observation and physical touch. Basically, they were systematically extracting crucial clinical data directly from the patient's physical state.
All of this clinical data culminated in one of their most advanced concepts, Prakriti. This was the unique, personalized baseline constitution of an individual patient. Long before the modern wellness world started throwing around terms like personalized medicine, ancient practitioners were actually using hard clinical data to establish a patient's Prakriti. This ensured that treatments and interventions were perfectly tailored for that exact individual's biology.
Section 4. Pharmacology and drug science.
When it came to actually crafting medicines, they definitely didn't just casually throw some leaves into a pot and hope for the best. No way. They utilized a heavily structured, highly scientific classification system. Every single biological compound was categorized by its taste, its physical qualities, and its biochemical potency. They even pushed the boundaries with a specialized branch of mineral alchemy called Rasa Shastra, literally integrating metals and minerals into highly advanced pharmaceutical formulations. We can clearly see the clinical power of this system and how they utilize specific active agents. They mapped out exact, targeted mechanisms of action for heavy-hitting compounds like ashwagandha, turmeric, and neem. They weren't just prescribing these things because they felt good, they were using them to achieve specific, highly documented biological outcomes within that framework of bodily tissues we talked about earlier.
Okay, moving on to Section 5. Advanced surgery and procedures.
300 plus. That is the staggering number of distinct surgical procedures documented in their medical arsenal over 3 millennia ago. Let that sink in for just a second. A medical system that is so often reduced to relaxing teas today had a literal operating theater with hundreds of categorized surgical interventions. It's almost unbelievable. The real pioneer of this surgical branch, Sushruta, meticulously documented techniques for highly delicate procedures. We're talking about everything from reconstructive rhinoplasty to cataract surgery. They engineered dozens of highly specific surgical tools modeled after animal jaws and bird beaks to get the exact precision they needed. And my absolute favorite detail? They instituted intense training protocols. They actually required medical students to practice complex incisions on watermelons and leather bags before they are ever allowed to even touch a real human patient.
Finally, Section 6, Legacy of Lifestyle Medicine. These scholars deeply understood that just reacting to a disease after it happened wasn't enough. Preventing it in the first place required a rigid, scientific approach to how you actually live your life. They dictated hyper-specific daily routines, as well as protocols that shifted with the changing seasons to maintain your biological equilibrium. They treated daily diet as a literal clinical intervention, and they utilized comprehensive systems for systemic physical detoxification. They basically wrote an ongoing, day-to-day operating manual for the human body.
And this isn't just ancient history. This legacy is exploding globally today. Modern scientific research is continually putting these ancient protocols under the microscope, and they keep validating them. We see this incredibly clearly with everyday staples like turmeric. The exact chemical efficacy of its anti-inflammatory compounds aligns perfectly with the targeted mechanisms recorded by Ayurvedic scholars thousands and thousands of years ago.
Let's wrap up with this thought. Ayurveda didn't just treat disease. It built a complete system to understand, prevent, and manage it. Dismissing this 3,000-year-old blueprint as mere folklore means totally ignoring a foundational pillar of human scientific achievement. When you really take a hard look at the complex diagnostics, the highly classified pharmacology, and those staggering surgical feats, you kind of have to ask yourself just how much more of this ancient medical science is still waiting to be properly understood by the modern world.